I should have known Thanksgiving would be like this. It always was. My sister Jessica had arrived at Mom and Dad's house in her new Mercedes, the third luxury car she'd owned in as many years. She worked in pharmaceutical sales, made decent money and never let anyone forget it. Especially not me. Emily's here. Mom had announced when I walked in, her tone somewhere between disappointed and resigned. Not the warm enthusiasm she'd used for Jessica's arrival an hour earlier. I'd driven my 8-year-old Honda Civic, the same one I'd had since grad school. Reliable. Unassuming. Perfect for not drawing attention. Still driving that old thing? Dad asked, glancing out the window. Jessica just got the new S-Class. Fully loaded. My car works fine, I said, setting down the wine I'd brought. Jessica was in the living room holding court with our cousins, Mark, Sarah, and David. She wore a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, her jewelry catching the light with every gesture. Emily, she called out, her voice dripping with false warmth. Come tell everyone about your exciting government job. I recognized the trap immediately. This was her favorite game. I work as a data analyst, I said simply, taking a seat on the far end of the couch. Data entry, you mean? Jessica corrected, laughing. She sits in a cubicle all day typing numbers into spreadsheets. It's quaint. Mark snorted. Didn't you go to Georgetown? What happened? I did go to Georgetown, I confirmed. Got my master's there too. And you ended up doing data entry? Sarah shook her head. That's rough. What a waste of a good education. I'd heard variations of this conversation for 7 years. Ever since I'd taken my position at what my family believed was a generic government office in D.C. They'd never asked for details. They just assumed. The benefits are good, I offered, which was true. The government benefits were excellent. Especially when you factored in the hazard pay for classified operations and the life insurance policy that came with a top-secret/SCI clearance. Benefits, Jessica repeated, making the word sound like an insult. That's what people say when their job is boring and pays nothing. Dad came in from the kitchen carrying a beer. Jessica just closed a deal that's going to bring in a 6-figure commission. Tell them about it, honey. Jessica launched into a detailed account of her latest pharmaceutical contract while I pulled out my phone. Not my personal iPhone, but the other one. The Samsung in the matte black case that looked like any other smartphone but was encrypted with NSA-grade security and connected to a network that didn't officially exist. 2 new messages. Both routine updates. The situation in Eastern Europe was still developing. The asset extraction in Southeast Asia was proceeding on schedule. Nothing that required my immediate attention. I put the phone away and tuned back into Jessica's story, something about hospital networks and procurement contracts and golf games with executives. Meanwhile, Emily probably can't even afford to go out to dinner, Jessica finished, turning to me with mock sympathy. Do you still have roommates in that tiny apartment? I live alone now, actually, I said. Moved to a new place 6 months ago. Where? Mom asked, suddenly interested. Are you still in that sketchy neighborhood? Georgetown, I said. Found a good deal. Jessica's eyebrows shot up. Georgetown? Those apartments start at like $3,000 a month. I shrugged. I got lucky. What I didn't mention was that my apartment was in a building with biometric security, bulletproof windows, and a direct line to the Secret Service field office. The rent was partially subsidized through a program for high-level intelligence officials living in potential target zones. But my family didn't need to know that. Must be a real dump if it's affordable, Dad said dismissively. No offense, honey, but you're not exactly raking it in with data entry. Dinner was more of the same. Mom had made her traditional Thanksgiving spread. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, the works. We gathered around the table, Dad at the head, and the conversation inevitably turned to careers again. David just made partner at his law firm, Aunt Carol announced proudly. Youngest partner in the firm's history. David grinned. 31 years old. Not too shabby. Incredible, Mom gushed. We're so proud of you. What about you, Emily? Uncle Robert asked. Any promotions coming your way? I'm happy where I am, I said, cutting into my turkey. That's what people say when they're stuck, Jessica interjected. No growth trajectory. No advancement opportunities. Just data entry. Forever. Someone has to do it, I said mildly. But why does it have to be you? Mom asked, and there was genuine sadness in her voice. You were so bright in school. Top of your class. We thought you'd do something important. I felt my secure phone buzz in my pocket. I ignored it. It was Thanksgiving. I mean, look at Jessica, Dad said. She's killing it. Company car, expense account, traveling to medical conferences. That's a real career. And look at you, Jessica added, her voice saccharine. Still doing data entry at some government office nobody's ever heard of. What is it, the Department of Agriculture? Transportation? Something like that, I said. The phone buzzed again. Twice in quick succession. That was unusual but not unprecedented. Probably just the operations center confirming receipt of my earlier status update. You know what the saddest part is? Jessica continued, warming to her theme. She'd had 3 glasses of wine and was feeling bold. Emily could have been somebody. She had the grades, the degree, the connections. And she settled for the most boring, dead-end job imaginable. It's not dead-end, I said quietly. Oh, please. Jessica rolled her eyes. You're 29 years old, making what, $40,000 a year? 50 if you're lucky? With no prospects, no advancement, nothing. You've basically given up on life. My actual salary was $185,000 base, not including the additional classified compensation packages, but I wasn't going to correct her. Jessica, that's enough, Mom said, but there was no real conviction in her voice. I'm just being honest, Jessica said. Someone needs to tell her. Emily, you're wasting your life. You could still go to law school, get an MBA, do something that actually matters. This data entry thing is just sad. The phone buzzed again. 3 times now in the span of 5 minutes. I pulled it out under the table and glanced at the screen. Priority alert. Situation escalation, standby for briefing, response required within 30 minutes. I put the phone away. I had time. The team could handle the initial assessment. Are you even listening? Jessica demanded. I'm listening, I said. Then say something. Defend yourself. Tell us I'm wrong. You're entitled to your opinion, I said. David laughed. God, you're so passive. That's probably why you're stuck in data entry. No ambition. No fire. Remember when she wanted to join the CIA? Sarah said, suddenly giggling. Sophomore year of college, she was all excited about it. Whatever happened with that? I remembered that conversation. I'd been home for winter break, 19 years old and full of idealistic plans. I told them about the recruitment seminar, the application process, the rigorous background checks. They'd laughed then too. The CIA, Dad had said. Honey, that's for people in movies. Not real life. You're too soft for that, Mom had added. Too sensitive. You'd never make it through the training. I think she applied and got rejected, Jessica said now. Didn't you? And that's when you settled for data entry. The phone was buzzing continuously now. Not individual alerts. A sustained vibration that meant someone from the operations center was calling directly. Excuse me, I said, standing up. I need to take this. See? Can't even turn off her phone for family dinner, Jessica muttered. I walked into Dad's study, closing the door behind me. The name on the screen said Karen Martinez, which was the cover identity for the Joint Operations Center's watch commander. Director Chin, the voice said when I answered. Not Karen Martinez. Admiral James Holder, commander of U.S. Cyber Command and my direct supervisor. We have a situation. I felt my entire body shift into a different mode. The pleasant Thanksgiving fog evaporated instantly. Go ahead, Admiral. Chinese intelligence services have initiated a coordinated cyber attack on 17 critical infrastructure targets across the continental United States. Power grids, water treatment facilities, emergency services, communications. They're inside the systems. This is not a drill. I was already moving to Dad's computer, waking it up. When did it start? 18 minutes ago. We've activated DEFCON protocols. The President has been briefed and is en route to the Situation Room. We need you at the Pentagon immediately. I'm 40 minutes out minimum, I said, pulling up the secure access portal. Dad's computer wasn't cleared for classified networks, but I could access the basic threat board. The map was lit up like a Christmas tree, red indicators across the entire eastern seaboard. We have a helicopter en route to your location, Holder said. 12 minutes. And Director Chin? This is the one we've been preparing for. Everything you've built over the last 3 years. Now's when we find out if it works. It'll work, I said. Tell the president I'm en route. I ended the call and stood there for a moment, running through the mental checklist. The playbook we'd developed. The response protocols. The teams positioned across 3 continents, waiting for my authorization to execute. For 7 years I'd been building the cyber defense initiative from the ground up. First as a deputy director, then as the director when my predecessor had a stroke during a simulation exercise. 3,000 personnel. $4.8 billion annual budget. The most sophisticated digital defense network ever created. And my family thought I did data entry. I opened the study door. The dinner conversation stopped immediately. Everyone turned to look at me. I have to go, I said. Work emergency. Jessica laughed. What kind of data entry emergency happens on Thanksgiving? The kind I can't discuss, I said, heading toward the front door. Emily, you haven't even had dessert, Mom protested. I'm sorry. This is important. More important than family? Dad asked, his voice hard. I was putting on my coat, checking my pockets for my credentials. Wallet, keys, both phones, the small leather case that contained my building access cards. Everything was there. Yes, I said simply. Jessica stood up, her face flushed with wine and indignation. This is ridiculous. What could possibly be so important that you have to run out on Thanksgiving dinner? Are the spreadsheets having an emergency? Did someone accidentally delete a column of numbers? I turned to face her. Jessica, I really need to go. No, she said, blocking my path to the door. I'm tired of this mysterious act. You're not a spy. You're not James Bond. You're a data entry clerk having a tantrum because we called out your pathetic career. The secure phone rang again. I could see the caller ID. POTUS direct line. That was the president. Calling me personally. On Thanksgiving. I let it go to voicemail. He'd understand. Move, I said to Jessica. Take me, she shot back. I could have. I'd been through the same hand-to-hand combat training as every field operative in the intelligence community. I'd qualified expert marksman with 4 different weapons systems. I'd done 3 rotations in active war zones under deep cover. But she was my sister and this was Thanksgiving and some habits die hard. Jessica, please, I said. Jessica, please, she mimicked in a whiny voice. God, you're so weak. So pathetic. No wonder you never amounted to anything. Through the window I could see lights in the sky. Helicopter lights approaching fast. The phone rang again, a different number this time. The Joint Operations Center's emergency line. I answered it. Chin. Director, we have secondary attacks initiating. They're going after the financial sector now. You need to be here. 2 minutes, I said and ended the call. The helicopter was close now, the sound unmistakable. Everyone in the room could hear it. What the hell is that? David asked. The chopper descended into the street in front of the house. A Marine Corps 60N White Hawk. Presidential Transport Squadron. The neighbors' houses lit up as people looked out windows, trying to figure out what was happening. That's my ride, I said. Jessica's mouth fell open. What? 2 Marines in full dress uniform were walking up the front path. I opened the door before they could knock. Director Chin, the senior Marine said, saluting crisply. We're here to transport you to the Pentagon, ma'am. Admiral Holder sends his compliments and requests your immediate presence. I returned the salute. I'm ready, Captain. Ma'am, we have your go bag and tactical gear on board. The Admiral suggests you change en route. Understood. I turned back to my family. They were all frozen, staring at me like they'd never seen me before. Director. Mom whispered. I have to go, I said again. Director of what? Dad asked. The Marine captain was holding the door, waiting politely. Through the window I could see the helicopter's rotors still spinning, ready for immediate departure. Emily, Jessica said, her voice strange. What's going on? My secure phone lit up again. A text message from the Director of National Intelligence. Emily, we're at DEFCON 2. Get here now. DEFCON 2. The second highest level of military readiness. 1 step below nuclear war. I'm the director of the Cyber Defense Initiative, I said, pulling out my credentials wallet and flipping it open. The badge was clear. Emily Chin, Director CDI. Below that in smaller text, Top secret/SCI clearance. Presidential authority. You're what? Mom said faintly. I direct the nation's cyber defense operations, I said. All of them. Every digital security protocol, every defensive system, every offensive cyber capability. 3,000 personnel report to me. When there's a cyber attack on the United States, I'm the one who coordinates the response. But, data entry. Jessica stammered. I never said I did data entry. You assumed that. I analyze data, yes. Intelligence data. Threat assessments. Attack vectors. That's different from data entry. Ma'am, the Marine captain said gently. We really need to go. Why didn't you tell us? Dad asked. Because it's classified, I said. I signed approximately 700 documents swearing I wouldn't discuss the details of my work with anyone who doesn't have appropriate clearance. That includes family. Director Chin, the captain said more urgently this time. The Admiral is holding a briefing for you. We're approaching the window where delay becomes critical. I understand, Captain. I looked at my family one more time. I'm sorry. I have to go. There's a situation that requires my immediate attention. What kind of situation? Uncle Robert asked. The classified kind, I said and walked out the door. The Marine Corps helicopter crew had the door open, ready to go. I climbed aboard, strapped in and put on the headset. The captain was already coordinating with the pilot. Directors secure. All systems green. We are cleared for immediate departure to the Pentagon. Through the helicopter window I could see my family standing on the front lawn, staring up at us. Jessica looked like she'd been hit in the face with a brick. Mom had her hand over her mouth. Dad was just standing there, motionless. The helicopter lifted off, banking hard to the east. Within seconds we were over the Potomac, racing toward the Pentagon at maximum speed. Ma'am, the crew chief said, handing me a secure tablet. Latest threat briefing. Admiral Holder wants you current before you arrive. I scanned the document. It was worse than I'd thought. The Chinese hadn't just penetrated 17 systems. They'd been inside for weeks, maybe months, mapping the networks and planting logic bombs. This wasn't a probe. This was preparation for full-scale cyber warfare. ETA to Pentagon? I asked. 7 minutes, ma'am. 7 minutes. In 7 minutes I would walk into the National Military Command Center and take control of the largest cyber defense operation in U.S. history. The President would be there, along with the Secretary of Defense, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and every major intelligence chief. They would all be waiting for me to tell them how to stop this. Ma'am, the crew chief said, offering me the go bag. Your gear. I changed quickly, swapping the casual Thanksgiving outfit for the business attire I kept ready. Dark suit, white blouse, comfortable shoes. The uniform of a senior intelligence official. Clipped to my belt. 3 different ID badges, each granting access to progressively more secure areas of the Pentagon. My phone buzzed with incoming messages. Status updates from my deputies around the world. Our defensive systems were holding, but barely. The Chinese had sophisticated tools, things we'd never seen before. Pentagon in sight, the pilot announced. The massive 5-sided building loomed below us, lit up in the darkness. The helicopter descended toward the helipad reserved for executive transport, the one I'd used dozens of times over the past 3 years. We touched down. I unbuckled, grabbed my gear and stepped out into the cold November night. Admiral Holder was waiting at the entrance, flanked by 2 Secret Service agents. He was a trim man in his late 50s, 27 years of naval service, and he looked worried. I'd never seen him look worried before. Emily, he said, not bothering with formal titles. Thank God you're here. Status? I asked, already walking. They're in deep power grid control systems in 7 states. If they wanted to, they could black out the entire eastern seaboard right now. Then why haven't they? I asked. That's what the President wants to know. We moved through the Pentagon's corridors at a near run, past security checkpoints that opened instantly when they scanned my credentials. 2 Marine guards snapped to attention as we approached the entrance to the National Military Command Center. The doors opened. The room was exactly as I'd left it during the last major exercise. A theater-style space with multiple screens showing real-time data feeds from around the world. But this time the threat board was real. The attacks were real. The potential for catastrophic damage was very, very real. President Morrison was there, standing at the head of the table, still in his suit from whatever event he'd been pulled away from. Secretary of Defense Wallace was next to him. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs. The director of the NSA. The director of the CIA. All of them turned to look at me. Director Chin, the president said. Thank you for coming. Mr. President, I said, moving to my position at the Tactical Operations Console. I understand we have multiple breaches. 17 confirmed, Admiral Holder said, pulling up the threat map. Possibly more that we haven't detected yet. I logged into the system, my credentials granting me access to every defensive tool we had. The data streamed across my screens. Network traffic, intrusion alerts, defensive protocols activating and deactivating as the attack evolved in real time. They're testing us, I said, watching the patterns. Looking for weaknesses in our response protocols. Can you stop them? The president asked. I pulled up the playbook we'd developed, the one nobody believed we'd ever actually use. Scenario 7, Coordinated Infrastructure Attack by Near-Peer Adversary. Yes, sir, I said. But it's going to get worse before it gets better. Explain, Secretary Wallace ordered. They're not trying to cause damage yet, I said, highlighting the attack vectors on the main screen. They're mapping our responses. Every defensive measure we deploy tells them something about our capabilities. They're learning. So what do we do? The CIA director asked. I looked at the president. Sir, I need authorization to execute Defensive Protocol Omega. The room went silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Offensive cyber operations. Not just defending against the attack. Actively striking back at the Chinese networks, taking down their command and control infrastructure, maybe even hitting their civilian systems as a demonstration of capability. It was the option we'd hoped never to use. That's an act of war, Secretary Wallace said quietly. They attacked us, I replied. We're already at war. This is just making it official. President Morrison looked at me for a long moment. Director Chin, you've been preparing for this scenario for 3 years. You've built an organization from the ground up. You've recruited the best talent in the intelligence community. You've spent almost $5 billion of taxpayer money. Now I'm asking you, are you confident that Defensive Protocol Omega will work? Yes, sir, I said without hesitation. I'm confident. Then you have my authorization, he said. Execute the protocol. I turned to my console and entered the command sequence, along with my personal authentication codes. On screens around the room, status indicators began changing from red to green as systems activated. Within 30 seconds, 3,000 cyber warfare specialists at locations around the world received their orders simultaneously. The largest coordinated cyber offensive operation in history had just begun. Chinese command and control networks are being disrupted now, I reported. We're severing their connections to the compromised systems. They're losing visibility. On the main screen, the attack patterns were already changing. The Chinese were realizing something was wrong, trying to adapt, but we were moving faster. Infrastructure systems are being quarantined, one of my deputies reported over the secure channel. We're regaining control. Power grids are secure, another voice said. Water treatment facilities secured. Emergency communications restored. The red indicators on the threat map were turning green one by one. 17 compromised systems. Then 15. Then 12. Their offensive capabilities are degrading, I said, watching the data flow. They're going defensive, trying to protect their own networks. Are we inside their systems? The president asked. Yes, sir, I said. We're in their military networks, their intelligence services, their critical infrastructure. Everything they did to us, we're doing to them. Better and faster. It took 43 minutes total. 43 minutes from the moment the president gave me authorization to the moment the last Chinese attack vector was neutralized and our forces were in position deep inside their networks. When it was over, I turned to face the room. Mr. President, the attack has been stopped. All 17 infrastructure targets are secure. Chinese offensive capabilities have been degraded by approximately 70%. We currently have access to significant portions of their classified military and intelligence networks. President Morrison nodded slowly. Casualties? None, sir. This was entirely digital. No loss of life on either side. Damage assessment? Minimal. Some temporary service disruptions that will be resolved within the next few hours. Nothing permanent. Nothing catastrophic. The president looked at the people around the table. The defense establishment, the intelligence chiefs, the military leadership. Then he looked back at me. Director Chin, you and your team just prevented what could have been the most devastating attack on American infrastructure in history. On behalf of the nation, thank you. Just doing my job, sir, I said. He smiled slightly. Yes. A job most Americans don't even know exists. But one that might have just saved thousands of lives. The briefing continued for another 2 hours. Diplomatic implications. Strategic responses. How to handle the media. Whether to publicize what had happened or keep it classified. I provided technical assessments, recommended defensive upgrades, and outlined the intelligence opportunities we now had inside Chinese networks. It was past midnight when the meeting finally ended. Admiral Holder walked me out. That was extraordinary, Emily. Textbook execution. It was a team effort, I said. It was your team, he replied. Your vision. Your leadership. 3 years ago, the Cyber Defense Initiative was just a PowerPoint presentation. Now it's the most effective cyber warfare organization in the world. My personal phone, the regular one, had been buzzing continuously for hours. I'd ignored it during the briefing, but now I pulled it out. 63 missed calls. 47 text messages. All from my family. I should probably deal with this, I said. Holder laughed. Yes, you probably should. Take tomorrow off. You've earned it. I walked out to the parking lot where I'd left my Honda Civic. It had been transported from my parents' house to the Pentagon at some point during the evening. Government efficiency at its finest. I sat in the car for a moment looking at my phone. The text messages ranged from confused to apologetic to demanding. Emily, please call us. We don't understand what's happening. Dad, is this some kind of joke? Are you really a director? Jessica, call me immediately. We need to talk. Jessica, I'm serious. Call me. Jessica, I'm sorry about what I said. I didn't know. Jessica, please just call and explain. There were similar messages from cousins, aunts, uncles. Word had apparently spread quickly. The Marines landing in the front yard had probably made an impression. I called Jessica. She answered on the first ring. Emily. Oh my God, where have you been? What's going on? I've been working, I said. Dealing with the situation I mentioned. She stopped. Emily, Marines came to the house in a helicopter. A military helicopter. And they called you director. What the hell is going on? I told you. I'm the director of the Cyber Defense Initiative. Which is what, exactly? It's the organization responsible for defending the United States against cyber attacks, I said patiently. We coordinate defensive operations, develop counterattack capabilities, and work with the NSA, CIA, and military to protect critical infrastructure. And you've been doing this for how long? 7 years. 3 as director, 4 before that in various deputy roles. Emily, I don't. Her voice cracked. Why didn't you tell us? Because it's classified, Jess. I literally can't tell you. The work I do, the operations I coordinate, the threats we face. It's all top secret. Telling you would be a federal crime. But we're family. Which is exactly why I can't tell you, I said. Family members are the most common security vulnerabilities. You get targeted by foreign intelligence services specifically because you're close to people with clearances. The less you know, the safer you are. There was a long silence. So when we were making fun of you for doing data entry, she said slowly, I was actually directing cyber defense operations for the entire United States. I finished. Yes. Oh my God. It's fine, Jessica. You didn't know. But for years we've been treating you like, she sounded like she was crying now. Emily, I'm so sorry. The things I said tonight, they were horrible. And all this time you were protecting the country, I said. Yes. Mom is freaking out. Dad doesn't believe it. He thinks it's some kind of elaborate prank. It's not a prank, I said. I can't give you details, but tonight there was a significant cyber attack on U.S. infrastructure. I coordinated the response. That's why I had to leave. Is the country safe? Yes, I said. We stopped it. Everything's fine. Another long pause. Can we see you? Jessica asked. Everyone's still here. They want to talk to you. I looked at the clock. It was almost 1 in the morning. I was exhausted, running on adrenaline and coffee. But family was family. I'll come by tomorrow, I said. I need to sleep first. Hey, yeah. Of course. She hesitated. Emily. Yeah. I really am sorry. For everything. Not just tonight. 4 years of being a terrible sister. We're good, Jess, I said, and I meant it. I drove home to my Georgetown apartment, the one with the bulletproof windows and biometric security. The building's night guard nodded at me as I walked through the lobby. Evening, Director Chin. Heard it was a busy night. You could say that, I said. Up in my apartment, I changed into comfortable clothes and stood at the window looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, power was flowing through grids that had almost gone dark. Water was being treated in facilities that had almost been compromised. Emergency services were communicating over networks that had almost been shut down. My phone buzzed one more time. A message from Admiral Holder. Chinese Foreign Ministry has requested an emergency call with State Department. They're backing down. Whatever you did tonight, Emily, it worked. Get some rest. You've earned it. I smiled and set the phone down. Tomorrow I would go back to my parents' house. I would explain as much as I was allowed to explain. I would probably field a lot of questions I couldn't answer and deal with a family who suddenly saw me very differently. But tonight I had done my job. I had protected the country. I had proven that the Cyber Defense Initiative wasn't just a bureaucratic exercise. It was a vital shield protecting American lives. And if my family finally understood that I wasn't just some data entry clerk wasting my Georgetown degree, well, that was just a bonus. I went to bed. I had a feeling tomorrow was going to be a very long day.